When you picture Jesus, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's a pretty specific image, right? A gentle figure, maybe a shepherd, maybe a carpenter. But today, we're going to explore a completely different angle, one that really challenges that popular image and might just reframe his entire mission.
We all know the story of Jesus, the humble carpenter from Nazareth. It's the image that's everywhere, in art, in stories, a simple man working with his hands before he started his ministry. It's a really powerful picture of humility. But what if that image, as familiar as it is actually incomplete? What if by focusing so much on the carpenter, we're kind of missing the main point, the one role that he, his followers, and even his biggest critics all seem to agree on? Yeah, our source material makes a really strong case that while Jesus might have had a trade, his main identity, the one that really defined his life's work, was something else entirely. And getting this distinction right is absolutely critical. The source puts it like this, and I think it's a great analogy. If we get the very premise of who Jesus was wrong, our whole journey of following his teachings could end up in the wrong place. So that's the big question, right? What premise should we be starting from? Well, let's dive in and look at the evidence presented in the texts themselves. If he wasn't primarily known as a carpenter, then who was he to the people around him? Turns out, the answer shows up over and over and over again. In the Gospels, the title teacher, or its Hebrew equivalent, rabbi, is used for Jesus more than 60 times. I mean, that's not just a rare, one-off thing. It was clearly the most common way people addressed him. And get this, it wasn't just a title other people gave him. According to the Gospel of John, Jesus himself owned it. He flat out confirmed it, telling his disciples, "You're right to call me teacher, because that's what I am." He validated that identity. Now, what's really fascinating here is who was using this title. Of course, his disciples did, but so did prominent religious leaders like Nicodemus, his staunchest opponents like the scribes and Pharisees, and even neutral outside observers like the historian Flavius Josephus. I mean, everyone seemed to agree on this one point. And his actions really back this up. He taught in synagogues, which was a privilege reserved for recognized rabbis. He debated scripture with the top legal experts of the day. Heck, even the main accusation his enemies brought against him was that he was teaching. And when they brought him the woman caught in adultery, they weren't just asking his opinion. They were testing his authority as a judge of the law, a role for a highly educated rabbi. Okay, so if Jesus was a teacher, a rabbi, what did his school look like? Well, the source material suggests it was way more intense than just a few sermons on a hillside. We're talking about a full-time, immersive school. The argument is that Jesus set up what were called houses or folds. Think of these as small communal learning centers. They weren't just dorms. They were basically private monasteries where his disciples lived and breathed the scriptures, studying day and night, directly under their master. And Jesus himself, according to the source, used this incredible analogy. He compared becoming his disciple to building a massive tower. This wasn't something you just jumped into. It was a project that demanded you sit down first, figure out the cost, and then commit everything you had to see it through. And that cost? It was steep. Step 1, forsake everything, your stuff, your job, even your family ties. Step 2, dedicate your entire life to full-time study. And step 3, train relentlessly until you, the student, actually become like your teacher. This was a path of total transformation. So, where did this intense, radical model of education come from? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The source proposes a connection to a very specific and somewhat mysterious Jewish group from that time. Okay, so back then, there were 3 main Jewish philosophical schools: the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Essenes. The Gospels are full of Jesus calling out the Pharisees and Sadducees, but the source points out something really curious. There's a complete silence when it comes to the Essenes. He never criticizes them, not once. And when you look at the parallels, it's pretty striking. Both Jesus' followers and the Essenes gave up all of their possessions to live communally. Both lived in these dedicated houses. Both were all about intense study of the scriptures. And here's the kicker. The Essenes often refer to themselves as the poor, the very same group that Jesus calls blessed in the Beatitudes. This parallel makes you rethink some famous stories, doesn't it? Like when Jesus tells that rich young ruler to sell everything and give to the poor. Was he just talking about random charity?
Or, as the source suggests, was he actually telling him to donate his wealth to the communal treasury of a scholarly group like the Essenes? Basically, telling him to pay his tuition to enroll in the school of Christ. It's a provocative idea. So, okay, we've journeyed from Jesus the carpenter to Jesus the highly respected rabbi, the headmaster of an intense, full-time school. Why does this shift in perspective matter so much, especially for us today? Well, because viewing Jesus primarily as a teacher totally reframes what it means to be a disciple. It shifts the whole idea from just a simple declaration of belief to a lifelong, demanding journey of study, of training, of personal transformation. It becomes an active pursuit of wisdom with the goal of becoming like the teacher. And that brings us right back to that core idea from our source. If Jesus was a teacher and being a disciple means enrolling in his school, then just saying you're a student isn't enough, right? The goal is to actually graduate, to embody the teachings, not just admire the teacher from afar. And if you get that mission wrong, you could end up in a very different place than you intended. So we'll leave you with this to chew on. How does this image, Jesus the rabbi, the scholar, the head of a demanding school, change the way we think about faith? Does it transform it from something passive you just have into an active, intellectual, and maybe all-consuming pursuit? It's definitely something to think about.